Wait, so are you like being like for real serious and like I can be like your favorite fan? Like, so like, well, that's crazy. Like that's really like what I want. Yeah. So like when you guys go on trips and stuff like that,
Do you want to shoot the Christmas music video next year?
I would, but I was Christmas. So like it's like a guest house. So I wouldn't really, I mean she can do that, but like I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. But like everything else I can do. It's just that part.
Yeah. Want to do it?
So like I'll get like notifications when you guys go on trips and stuff like that. Something like how will I
Yeah, I can put you. I'll put you in the Google Classroom.
actually
So I think the first thing is, I'll put you on the trip too. We're going to Van Pike Elementary School to perform in April. We're also going to CHOP for I'll give you those dates.
How we feeling today, Rush? Whoa, we're not doing that. I said, how we feeling today, Rush? Okay, let's hear it one more time from you, loud as you can. How we feeling today, Rush? Before we begin today's celebration of Black history and empowerment, we'd like to, for the first time, formally introduce the Arts Academy at Benjamin Rush's United Minority Council, composed of Brenda Rodriguez Leonardo, Jessica Flavin, Juliana Delgado, Carla Thomas, Karina Fun, Kiara Ross, Lindsay Whitman Orley, Messiah Divine Alive, Ryan Bowles, Samir Green, Sasha, and myself, Christopher Rodriguez. This council was informally assembled last year following events that caused racial tension and turmoil. Some students, including myself, organized protests that ultimately led to us getting outside help. We decided to speak to Ms. Davis and Ms. Spencer, who helped us organize this council that stands before you today. Our council aims to represent all minorities in our school community, easing the tension in the pursuit of equity. As you know, minorities are groups of individuals that are commonly discriminated against in the community, differing from others in culture, race, sex, gender identity, political beliefs, language, or religion. Many people are unaware of the struggles of minorities, and some minorities are unaware of the struggles within their own identification groups. Our mission is to educate the Rush community and form unity to empower the oppressed. Now I'll get to Tyler before.
The UMC is composed of many people from different races, ethnicities, religious backgrounds, sexual and gender identity, with a common goal to make a difference in our school community. So far, we have been a reason the school has a climate manager. We've also created the posters you see hanging around the school with QR codes to shed light on struggles of minorities. We are currently assisting in the school beautification movement, and we've organized this entire assembly.
Within the next few months, after putting together the African American History Assembly, we will be working on our first Multicultural Day. In order for us to make that day happen, we will be taking surveys and giving announcements, and in order for us to get the correct information and make sure there's representation for as many cultures as possible.
Towards the end of the year, you will be given the opportunity to join the UMC by submitting an anonymous application explaining how you can personally help with the education and awareness of injustices faced by minorities. To be a member of the UMC, do not feel like you have to be particularly extroverted. We are simply looking for those who are passionate for change and who are willing to work for a better tomorrow.
Give it up for the United Minority Council. Oh, Ms. Spencer and Ms. Davis to give you guys a foreword. Y'all can clap louder than that. You got two amazing women right here. Oh, give it up to Spencer and Davis. Come on, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
So we are so excited about the show, and we hope that you enjoy it. We also just wanted to let everyone know, especially since this assembly has our 9th graders in it, we have actually not introduced ourselves to you as the not only advisors of the UMC, but also the race relations advocates. So after some situations that we've had in prior years, along with administration, we worked together to create our roles. And so if any student feels that their minority voice is being neglected or not heard, or that you're having any type of conflict or issues, please reach out to us. That can be through email, that can be one-on-one. My classroom is located up on the second floor in 244.
And you don't, and mine's 140 right over here. Don't feel afraid, and nothing is too small. You can always come talk to us. Our doors are always open for you.
And definitely it helps us in our goal of making sure that students feel heard and respected in the school community, and that we keep our school community going in the way that it is. And we're really excited with what the UMC is about to do next after the show is over today, with having meetings with various minority voices in the school. And so we hope that you attend so that we can hear your voices and then educate our Rush community.
Yeah, we're hoping for it to be a really big event that is something that will happen every year and involve everybody in the school. So we're really excited. So when you get those messages on Google Classroom, please fill out the surveys, be involved, because we want to hear everybody's voice.
And we'll have applications in May go out for any new members that would like to join. So please look forward to that. And now for the show.
We're super excited. So please help us celebrate this amazing assembly and Black History Month. Clap, you can snap, praise, do what you gotta do, and support our people.
And we're ready to go.
And we're ready.
So enjoy the show.
Enjoy.
Okay, so we're starting with the 1920s, and we're going to start with the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance, aka the New Negro Movement, began in the 1920s and was a turning point in Black cultural history. It helped African American artists take control over their Black culture and experience. It was an artistic, intellectual, and social outbreak that took place in Harlem, Manhattan. This Renaissance was important because it inspired many Black artists and intellectuals to take pride in their African roots and create work that derived from them and their culture. It was a new beginning for sharing and understanding African American culture. It was the first time America began to really recognize all of the innovative and intelligent work of African Americans, what they contributed to society. Some people who contributed their work is author and filmmaker Zora Neale Hurston, composer Duke Ellington, and famous jazz musician Louis Armstrong. The Harlem Renaissance was a time for African American people to share their craft with the world. And some of those people you even know and remember today. Now coming to the stage is Katrina, Malaysia, Ayana, and Tashira with Wade in the Water, followed by Mr. Marks and the Jazz Band with a musical piece from the 20s. Give it up!
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See that men all dressed in white. God's gonna trouble the water. The leader looks like the Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Oh, wade in the water. God is gonna trouble the water. See that men all dressed in red. God's gonna trouble the water. It looks like the band that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Oh, wade in the water. Children in the water. God is gonna trouble the water. Ooh, 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 ooh. God
There's healing in the water, yeah, 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 yeah. Deliverance in the water. My God is gonna trouble the water.
Yes.
The Rush Arts Jazz Ensemble will be performing Wrapping It Up, written by American composer Fletcher Henderson. Fletcher Henderson is considered to be one of the most prolific and influential African-American jazz composers of his time, along with the likes of Duke Ellington. Many popular African-Americans got their start by playing in Henderson's band, such as Louis Armstrong, Jelly Roll Morton, and Coleman Hawkins, and all went on to have very successful solo careers. Fletcher Henderson, however, never got the same recognition and is now most well known for his compositions that were purchased and performed by the Betty Goodman Band. Wrapping It Up represents the big band style of the 1920s and will feature the sax section on clarinets, Andrew Maminsky on alto sax, Alex Kashmarowski on clarinet, and James Fuss on trumpet.
So how was that? Give it up for Jasmine. Today we aim to give a spotlight to those who have been deprived of it, and those who are well-deserving. So I'd like to talk to you about a well-deserving woman named Mary McLeod Bethune. Born to former slaves on July 10th, 1875 in South Carolina, Mary grew up to become one of the most influential women of the 20th century. It was Mary McLeod Bethune who founded educational standards for today's black colleges and HBCUs. And her role as an advisor to FDR himself gave African Americans for the first time a strong advocate in government. Mary also was a pioneer of the women's rights movement. She was a champion of racial and gender equality, and she did much of the legwork to start fighting for the rights we enjoy today. And something that I found amazing, Mary was actually the founding president of the National Council of Negro Women. So give it up for Mary McLeod.
Tap dance was originated in the United States in the mid-1800s. It's a function of its a fusion of West African, Irish jig, and British Isle soft shoe. It is a type of dance characterized by using the sounds of tap shoes strike the floor as a form of percussion. When slave owners took away their traditional African percussion instruments, slaves turned to percussive dancing to express themselves and retain their cultural identity.
William Henry Lane, Bill Bojangles Robinson, Clayton Pegleg Bates, Jenny Lee Gone, Gregory Hines, and Savion Glover are credited as few of the most influential figures in the creation of American tap dance. William Henry Lane was known as Master Juba. The Juba dance, also known as Pat and Juba, was a mix of European jig, real steps, clog, and African rhythms. Some say this was the creation of tap dance in America as a theoretical art form in American jazz dance. Our next piece is a duet performance by Kyla and Carolyn to Stand Up by Cynthia Erivo.
I've been walking with my face turned to the sun. Weight on my shoulders, a bullet in my gun. Oh, I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. I do what I can when I can, when I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night, that's when I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones. I am the morning before the sun begins to shine. We're gonna start moving towards that separating line. I'm wading through muddy water. You know I gotta make up mine. And I don't mind if I lose any blood on the way to salvation. And a fight with the the strength that I got until I die. So I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Far across the river, freedom calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on. Jacob Lawrence, an American painter and the most widely acclaimed African-American artist of the 20th century. Lawrence tells a story that reminds us of our shared history and at the same time invites us to reflect on the universal theme of struggle in the world today. He had already developed his own style of modernism and began creating narrative series, painting 30 or more paintings on one subject. He completed his best-known series, the Migration series, in 1941. The panel here shows the migration over 1 million African Americans from the South to industrial cities in the North between 1910 and 1940. These panels, as well as others by Lawrence, are linked together by descriptive phrases, colors, and designs. In November 1941, Lawrence Migration Series was exhibited at the prestigious Downtown Gallery in New York. This show received wide acclaim, and at the age of 24, Lawrence became the first African American artist to be represented by a downtown mainstream gallery. Today, his panels are shared between two museums, the Phillips Museum in Washington, D.C., and the Museum of Modern Art in New York City.
1899. He was a pioneer in the field of chemistry and medical drugs. He attended school up to 8th grade, but was not allowed to attend high school because there weren't any high schools open up to Black students yet. So he applied to DePaul University in Indiana, where he took high school level classes as well as college level classes. And he was actually one of the first African Americans to receive their doctorate in chemistry. He went on to invent steroids, cortisone, and birth control pills, just to name a few. He sadly died April 19, 1975, due to liver cancer, leaving behind the accomplishment of being one of the first Black millionaires. Hi guys. Okay. So, born in 1930 in the South Side of Chicago, Lorraine Hansberry was the first African American female to ever work produced on Broadway. Debuting in 1959, A Raisin in the Sun was also the first show on Broadway to be directed by an African American, Lloyd Richards. Written when she was just 26 years old, A Raisin in the Sun was an instant critical and commercial success. The initial production featured Sidney Poitier and later Ozzie Davis. The family drama was the first to feature an almost all African-American cast and explores the issues of the racial discrimination, personal ambition, and the power of family. Hansberry was also a poet, journalist, and civil rights activist.
All right, so now we on to the 1950s and 1960s. So we all know that this is when the civil rights movement began, and well, it was a struggle. It was a struggle because it was hard to gain social justice for Blacks to gain equal rights. Even though the Civil War abolished slavery, Black people still suffered. They still were experiencing racism and discrimination.
Despite being granted their freedom, Jim Crow always loomed in their presence, preventing Black people from obtaining true equality. From the Tuskegee Airmen who flew for our country to the hateful terror that blew up before our eyes when the Freedom Riders reached Alabama, the Black community and their supporters stood up to their naysayers, advancing through the battle that was segregation in America.
And so then, by the end of the 20th century, Black people, along with many whites, came together and fought to get equal rights. Blacks took on leadership role models like never before. They held public office and sought legislative changes for equality and the right to vote. And then slowly, little by little, Black gained their equal rights.
It was only days after Martin Luther King's assassination when the Fair Housing Act was passed, which prevented discrimination based on race, sex, national origin, and religion. The civil rights movement was an empowering yet uncertain time for America that continues to influence our society today. And our next piece will be performed by Millet, To Glory, by John Legend in Common.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, oh, glory.
Hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon. Formed against, yes, glory is destined. Everyday women and men become legends. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtaposition enough. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son died, the spirit is revisiting us. True and living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it goes down, we women and man up. They say stay down, and we stand up. Shots be on the ground, the camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop, and we ran up.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, 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 oh, glory, glory. Now the
Now for every man, woman, and child. Even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They march with the torch, we gon' run with it now. Never look back, we done gone hundreds of miles. From dark roads, heroes, to become a hero. Facing the league of justice, his power was the people. The enemy is lethal, a king became regal. Saw the face of Jim Crow under a bald eagle. The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful. We sing, our music is the cuts that we bleed through. Somewhere in the dream we had an epiphany. Now we right the wrongs in history. No one can win a war individually and take the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory. The coming of the Lord, my eyes have seen the glory.
one day, glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. We will be sure, we will be sure. Oh,
All right, how do we like that? Okay, so now we're going to talk about the 1970s. African Americans began to expand their power through the papers. This is around the time when our people began to invest in new magazines for our culture. The Black Enterprise is a Black-owned magazine that speaks of Black businesses that was created during this time. The Essence magazine was also created around this time for our women. Speaking of our strong Black women, during this time, Black women began to uprise tremendously with their power as well. We made sure that people knew of our culture and our beauty through many different sources, such as the Essence magazine, but we also had the National Black Feminist Organization that was founded in 1973 to address the unique issues that affected our Black women. And with this movement, we stood our ground and made sure that we not only addressed those issues, but we solved them too. Our ancestors stepped up and took back the power, as it is our job to do so now. So let's rise and make a change, because better days are sure to come.
All right, now we're in the 1980s. The GPS, something basically everyone uses today. But does everyone know the history behind it? Sutherland, Virginia, 1930. Gladys West was born. West was born a pioneer of GPS technology. She designed an accurate model for the Earth that was used in designing GPS systems still in use today. West also participated in a path-breaking, award-winning astronomical study that proved during the early 1960s the regularity of Pluto's motion relative to Neptune. She received one of the Air Force's highest distinctions at 87, decades after her contribution.
The 1980s was a decade that showed a lot of media as we see it now, with BET, standing for Black Entertainment Television, launching January 25th, 1980, and Vanessa Williams being the first Black woman crowned Miss America in 1984. Following in the same year, the popular Cosby Show aired on NBC as a sitcom focused around a middle-class African-American family living in New York. Cherished author Toni Morrison had won the Pulitzer Prize in 1988 for her 1987 work, Beloved, and poet, singer, memoirist, and civil rights activist Maya Angelou had been named the first Reynolds Professor of American Studies at Wake Forest University well into her career. In 1985, MOVE, a Black liberation group founded in Philadelphia, was bombed by the police department and resulted in 11 deaths, and more than 250 citizens were left homeless, contributing to what Black Americans fight with the civil rights movement. Jean-Michel Basquiat was an American artist who used graffiti and other art forms as a tool for introspective and identifying with his experiences in the Black community, as well as attacks on power structures and systems of racism. Now coming to the stage is Anthony and Lauren.
I don't think about art when I'm working. I try to think about life.
This is a quote from a visual artist who broke many barriers and had a great impact on the Black community, Jean-Michel Basquiat.
Basquiat was a Haitian and Puerto Rican artist from Brooklyn and died at the young age of 27. He was the highest-selling painter for many years, breaking records for many Black artists in New York. Basquiat never attended art school. Rather, he listened to the music his father played at home, as well as listening to the world around him.
Basquiat's launch into the art world started with graffiti art using the tag Samo him and a friend created. He went from trying to make ends meet by selling merchandise with his art on it to becoming an internationally recognized neo-expressionist Black artist who had a piece that sold for $110.5 million, breaking records for the most expensive piece by an American artist. He is an inspiration for many young Black artists such as myself.
Basquiat had a unique way of taking absurd anatomy, ancient history, and everyday life and turning them into his own language in which the entire world could speak. He loved to take the hard-to-digest problems of the world, such as oppression and identity, and present them straight to his mainstream audience. He used his artwork as an outlet for social activism and cultural awareness.
In less than a decade, Basquiat made thousands of pieces, including paintings, drawings, poems, sculptures, and music. Unfortunately, his amazing legacy was cut short due to a drug overdose.
Though Basquiat died young, his legacy will forever live on in the hearts, souls, and minds of the people who experience his truly one-of-a-kind art. He will always be an inspiration to artists around the world, especially those in the Black community.
Okay, so now we are moving on. We're going to talk about how Black sitcoms have been on television since the earliest days of New York syndication. The genre really flourished in the 1990s. The 90s showcased some incredibly funny Black sitcoms such as Martin, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Family Matters, and Sister Sister. Moving on, who even created hip hop? And how did it start? The South Bronx community leader, Africa Bambaataa, used the term hip hop for the first time. Hip hop and R&B was the art of manipulating sounds to create music. You see this within a lot of artists here today, such as Drake, Janet Jackson, Lil Wayne, Jay-Z, Kanye West, and even James Brown. One of them you're gonna see perform today. We're gonna introduce Ayana singing Don't Touch My Hair by Solange. Don't touch my hair. When it's the feelings I wear, don't touch my soul. When it's the rhythm I know, don't touch my crown. They see the vision I found, don't touch what's there. When it's the feelings I wear, they don't understand what it means to me. Where we chose to go, where we meant to move. They don't understand what it means to me. Where we chose to go, where we meant to move. You know this here is my road, the ride I gave it time, but this here is mine. You know this here is my road, the ride I gave it time, but this here is mine. What you say, oh, what you say to me, 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 what you say to me. Don't touch my pride. They say the glory is all mine. Don't test my mouth. They say the truth is my sound. They don't understand what it means to me. Where we chose to go, where we dared to know. They don't understand what it means to me. Where we chose to go, where we dared to know. You know this here is my road, the ride I gave it time, but this here is mine. You know this here is my road, the ride I gave it time, but this here is mine. What you say, oh, what you say to me, 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 it's my everything. Yeah!
Now coming to the stage is Christy with a spoken word piece. And for her piece, please be interactive. She's going to say to do certain things and please do them. That's the whole point of her spoken word. It's interactive. And then we will have Janice Rose with dance piece with company. And then after that, a rap duo with Jaren and Messiah. So get ready.
Okay, class. The game is Simon Says. You know how it goes, right? When Simon says to do an action, you do an action. But you're only supposed to do an action if Simon says. Ready? Yeah. Simon says, raise your right hand up. Simon says, put your right hand down. Simon says, raise your left hand up. Put your left hand down. Wait. Simon didn't say, okay? Let's try it again. Simon says, put your left hand up. Simon says, put your left hand down. Cross your arms. No. Simon didn't say cross your arms. You need to make sure that you're listening. Simon says, smile. Show us your teeth. You're only as valuable as you are able. Simon says, raise your left hand up again. Wave. Why are you waving? Didn't your mother teach you how to listen? Don't you know how to listen? You must not be a good listener at home. Simon says it's not time for a bathroom break. You go when Simon says. Eat when Simon says. Leave this room when Simon says. There's only one rule, only do what Simon says. Simon says you will speak only when you are told to speak. Simon says, speak to your neighbors now. Stop. Stop. Why don't I see everyone speaking now? You chose to play this game and now you're choosing not to play? How dare you win it for everyone else? Simon says it's still not time for a bathroom break, so stop asking. Simon says that you're not listening, and people that don't listen will never be successful. You know what? You don't even care. So take out a book and shut up. Read. Simon says read. Simon says it's time to find the hallways now, one behind the other, straight silent line, tight to the right. Simon says if you can't be silent, how will you know what Simon is telling you to do? Silence. I said be silent. Simon says be silent. Simon says only 30 minutes to eat your lunch and be silent. Eat faster. Eat faster. Simon says sit up straight and be still. Simon says tuck in your uniform. You don't want to tuck in your uniform? Then go sit in the corner. Simon says if you can't handle this classroom, black boy, how will you handle your jail cell? Simon says you will refer to it as Officer Simon from here on. And Officer Simon says, know your place. Show your teeth, boy. You're only as valuable as you are able. Officer Simon says, put your hand down. We don't raise hands here. There are no questions here. Officer Simon says, you must not be a good listener at home. At this rate, you'll not be going home. Officer Simon says, you will speak only when you are told to speak. Officer Simon says, speak to your cellmates now. Why don't I hear anybody speaking now? You chose to play this game and now you're choosing not to play? How dare you win it for everyone else? Officer Simon says it's still not time for a bathroom break, so stop asking. Officer Simon says that you're not listening, and people that don't listen will never be successful. Officer Simon says it's time to find the hallways now, one behind the other, straight silent line, tight to the right. Officer Simon says if you can't be silent, how will you know what Officer Simon is telling you to do? Silence. I said be silent. Officer Simon said be silent. Fix your uniform. Fix your face when you're talking to me. Clean your bunk, you animal. I don't care if I didn't say Officer Simon said. Officer Simon said it. So sit up straight and be still. Be still. Be still. Officer Simon said, "If you can't handle this jail cell, how will you handle your casket?"
Seven feet. Barren, strange fruit. Blood on the leaves. And blood at the roots. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees.
My money's good. I wanna know too much Lord, keep these are blessings manifest with every lesson learned. If your knowledge worth your worth, then it would be well earned. Oh, no, no, no.
Years later.
Oh, enough of that. Back to the beat.
It's no compare. It's right inside me, yeah. And I won't forget. You know I can't got some presence on you. You know there's nothing I would not do. Before I let you never let you go before I go. I'm about to fly with it. Check on the bandanas. I say it's champagne. I get the damn thing. You did I am singing and dancing all in the chain. Just wanna have a good time. Inside. Watch your legs, turn around and clap. To the left, left, right. Step on the kick, on the step. Swag the right, step to left, work the middle, work the middle.
I reminisce around this.
Yo, I reminisce on the fact that I'm black. Wearing a baseball cap, hair puffing out the back. They put a little shame to my name, cause a young boy rose with a little blonde stroke in the frame. I'll talk about the land, I'm back where it all began. The cooking up the yam in the pan. Dark and sweet like iced tea you can. The makers of a plan to show you young man. Roots of African.
And go on again. Red, black, green, let's make amends. It's not getting older. It's not a crime phase, we take it over. I watch the clock tick as the locksmith puts the key through the hole of the soul. But he jumps when he sees police patrol in the sky. The scroll unrolls, the stories of old. Questions why? How do I get by? And should I sell drugs? Should I rob my bank? Sinking further in the fish tank. The struggles of demise come to a surprise. The journey through the tunnel reshapes the eyes. The traumas of our past, what makes us laugh? It blessed beyond measure. He gave you the tools to endeavor. Hey God, pretty clever.
Wait, hold on. Let's switch the beat real quick. All my life I had to fight, brother.
All my life,
Hard times like y'all.
hey, but bad trips like
What up, Nazareth? Yo, I messed up when we do messed up, but it got us, and we gon' be alright. And we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Yeah, we gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright. And we gon' be alright.
Gonna be alright.
Yeah,
Said we gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright.
and when I wake up, I recognize you looking at me for the pay cut. Cause I tell our souls in this state. But I still ain't got no money in my bank account. Lord knows, money goes, peas in the trees. Got another degree, all through this meat. Black gold teeth, dirty white piece. Put more guns out with the knives that I speak. For the record, every man's a heavy ball, keep the pocket deep. Now we sinking deep in the floor, run black. Oh, you got a gun, now we heavy for the man. Grease out the pan, you don't know where I've been now. Can African, put the chain on, put it back on, it's how we end. Down in the ego, my state. Won't you believe when I say, when we go? We've been hurt and down before. Brother, when our ride was low, looking at the world like, where do we go? And we hate so close, trying to get this bread and sheets of gold. Brother, I'm at the preacher's door. My knees get weak and I pain my soul, but we gon' be alright. Yeah, we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. He said we gon' be alright. Do you hear me? We gon' be alright. Yeah, we gon' be alright. Let me tell you now, we gon' be alright. Yeah, we gon' be alright. You hear me? We gon' be alright.
What you want? You a house? You a car? For the Yankees and the mule, a piano, a guitar, anything. See, my name is Uncle Sam. I can see the ego. I can tell it. I know what's illegal. I don't think about it. I deposit every other zero. Thinking in my pocket, thinking, put it on the ring. Thinking in my pocket, thinking in my pocket, thinking everything about it. The dollar just to keep you in the presence of your Chico. I don't talk about it, think about it every day I see. Well, if I got it, then you know you got it. Heaven, I could reach you. Cat dog, my dog, that's all. Big bag and trap, I trap the best for y'all. I black on track, I rap blue track, so my right, my wrong, my right till my Bible gone. You know, you've been hurt and down before. Brother, when
when our pride was low, looking at the world like, where do we go? And we hit so close, trying to get this bread in the streets so cold. I got the preachers though, my knees get weak and the pain might show, but we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Let me hear you say we gon' be alright. You hear me? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Yeah, hear me? We gon' be alright.
How you guys feeling? How was that? Now we're going to move on to the 2000s. The 2000s was a time of both greatness and despair. Beginning on August 23rd, 2005, New Orleans was struck with one of the deadliest hurricanes. The natural disaster had a devastating effect on African American higher education. 20,000 African American college students in New Orleans were affected, and most did not have a college campus to return to after this tragedy.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about Obama, right? Barack Obama made a huge impact in the African American community and in America in general. He was the first African American president in U.S. history. In many people's eyes, Obama's impact may have been one of the greatest in terms of the crisis that did not occur throughout his time in office. Black employment grew in 2015, hitting its highest numbers. Obama was credited for reforming unfair sentencing, bringing health insurance to millions, and holding violent police departments accountable.
The 2000s was a time to recognize in history. Although there were difficult times, African Americans rose up and made an impact. People such as Rihanna, Missy, Elliott, and 50 Cent. Big corporations such as Disney also shined a light on African Americans by creating the character of the first Black princess in 2009.
The man up on the wall needs no introduction. But unfortunately, on January 26, 2020, we lost one of the most influential, amazing, talented basketball players that has ever graced this world, Kobe Bryant. In light of his passing, I felt inspired to write a tribute for him. Something that a lot of people don't know is Kobe was a lot more than just a basketball player. Kobe was a humanitarian. He was a father. He was a husband, a family man. And there's so much more to his character than just basketball. And so, to deliver this Kobe tribute, I want to invite Tyree Jones on the stage. I was born August 23rd, 1978, in Philadelphia, right here where we're all gathered. Growing up, I lived just outside the city in a home with my mother and my father. My dad was a huge baller. They called him Jelly Bean. That's how I got my middle name. I always looked up to him in the craft that he was such a master of. He put me onto the sport and it changed my life forever. When I was about 8 years old, my dad made a crazy choice and we moved to Italy. My dad kept playing ball while we were there in the International Basketball League. I remember my grandmother would send me tapes of the NBA so I could study the game and see what she saw. I loved it. During summers, I would fly back to Philly and play in summer leagues, but not to toot my own horn, but I was getting so good. I was always a team leader and an example. When I was 13, we moved back to Philadelphia. And once I entered high school just outside the city, I began to realize that sport was my calling. I played at Lower Marion High School, and I was a varsity team player ever since my freshman year. Although I believed that basketball would be my future, I would have never imagined what else I would be able to accomplish up till now. I hit rough patches through my career and on and off the court, but I always kept my faith within the Catholic religion that I was raised. Many times my priest helped me through the toughest times, and ultimately, God always had my back.
I experimented with the arts all throughout my life, and I remember in high school, I was a part of a rap group. I have a song with Shaq, and my group and I were signed to Sony. Being young and naive, I didn't see how the record label was trying to take advantage of my NBA fame and me. As I got older, I was able to be more successful outside of my sport, and I did what I could to become a philanthropist. I became the official ambassador for After School All Stars, which is an American nonprofit organization that provides after-school programs to children in the U.S. Things of this nature for Black and brown children like I once was can be a difference maker in the lives of children. Giving them a way to spend time productively and exposing them to things that could one day become their passion could easily save their lives and provide them with a way to make a difference in the world. It reminded me of the way that basketball saved my life. For that reason, I knew I was on board. Later, I created a charity fund in China that raises money within China to give education and health programs to children who need it. After that, my wife and I created our own nonprofit that establishes relationships with young people in need. We encourage the development of physical and social skills through sports, which I feel is no better way to teach kids how to be a leader and a part of something bigger than themselves. Our other main goal is assisting the homeless. Going to college out of LaSalle in North Philly for a few years exposed me to the horrors of homelessness and poverty. I've always despised the injustice aimed at homeless people who are blamed for their situation when in reality, we should do our part to help those less fortunate than ourselves. I've always wanted more out of life than just a successful basketball career. Many people know me from my 5 championship wins and my infamous three-peat. People know me from my Mamba mentality and everything else connected to basketball. Still, I feel like I've accomplished so much more. I've been able to be the first of so many things. I have an Academy Award. I helped found multiple nonprofit organizations. I'm able to coach my daughter. This month is about everyone who came before me and all the history that has been created by our ancestors. My achievements in basketball are amazing, but the fact that I'm one of the founding donors to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, that makes me so proud. Although I have transcended what I have accomplished in life, I hope you all remember me for more than just a basketball player. I hope you all reciprocate the examples I have set in my life and in death. I hope you honor my achievements of those and other Black person who contributed and continues to contribute to Black American history. I am thankful. I am faithful. I am a father. I'm a husband. I'm an athlete. I'm the essence of what it means to be a competitor. I am Kobe Bryant.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all feeling all right? So the 2010s were a decade of triumphs and tribulations. In 2011, the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial by La Yixin was opened in Washington, D.C. In 2012, America's first Black president, Barack Obama, got reelected. But it was also much loss felt in this decade. With the unjust deaths of Trayvon Martin, Kamani Gray, Eric Gardner, and Michael Brown, it felt like we were just starting to see how little America has truly grown.
And yet, we persevered. Through protests and demonstrations, the hard-fought battle for equality became public, with the Black Lives Matter movement starting in 2013. And in 2019, we had all Black pageant winners as Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, Miss America, Miss World, and Miss Universe. Though this is a minor victory, it is only a sign of change to come. Our last few pieces will be a 9th grade dance to Freedom by Beyonce, an art piece by Lauren, and a video featuring Rush students produced and directed by Naomi, and finally a performance by Bree and Abby.
Give me, I've been running blind and true. I'm waiting on this little love. Tell the sweet I'm new. I'm telling these tears going fall away, oh. May the last one burn into flames. Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Freedom, freedom, where are you? I need freedom too. I break chains around myself. I'll let my freedom run in hell. Hey, I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Ten Hail Marys, I meditate for practice. Channel 9 News tell me I'm moving backwards. 8 blacks left, death is around the corner. 7 misleading statements by my persona. 6 headlights waving in my direction. 5-0 asking me what's in my possession. Yeah, I keep trying to jump into aqueducts, fire hydrants and hazardous smoke alarms on the back of us. But mama don't cry for me, rap for me, try for me, live for me, breathe for me, sing for me, honestly guiding me. I can be more than I gotta be, still from me, lie to me, nation hypocrisy, code on me, driving me, wicked, my spirit inspired me like yeah. Open correctional gates in high desert, yeah. Open our minds as we cast away oppression. Open the streets and watch our beliefs. So when they carve my name inside the concrete, I pray forever. Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Freedom, freedom, where are you? I need freedom too. I break chains around myself. I'll let my freedom run in hell. Hey, I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
From a Nobel Prize winning, who used masterful writing to capture the pain and beauty in the story of Beloved and Setha, to a pioneer of African art who captured the essence of the first Black president of the United States, my painting shines a spotlight on the men and women who served as pillars of Black artistry in this decade. Using acrylics, I try to capture these people with one goal, to induce the question, who is that? With the understanding that when curiosity is prompted and questions are asked, the blight of ignorance is lessened. When someone then learns the stories of Ta-Nehisi Coates, Lupita Nyong'o, Toni Morrison, and the many others depicted, the word Black is quickly associated with power in a society that's done everything in its power to make sure those two words never work in tandem.
Go ahead, Naomi. There we go. Go ahead, Naomi. It's up. Yeah. Keep talking. Keep talking. It's on.
Okay, so today, I was able to have the honor to make a video for this assembly. It's about Black beauty, Black culture, Black history, you name it, everything, right? And there's a few Rush students in it, and this video is supposed to spread awareness to those who don't feel comfortable in their own skin. And also, as a disclaimer, there may be some sensitive language, so just so y'all are aware of that. And I really hope this video inspires y'all and you learn, because while I was doing the interviews, I was able to learn a lot about how people felt and how they feel about what's called being Black. And so I hope y'all take this as a learning experience and see what people have to say about, you know, their culture. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, Naomi. Hold on, there's no sound. It's not my fault. What? It's the Rush Arts ghost. Are you sure it's? It should be on.
No, still nothing. Because there's music at the beginning.
Here, wait. I think I know mine. Wait, close the projector. I think it might be this.
Oh, the streaming.